Okay, I think we're ready to go. So, good evening. Welcome to Charter Township of Grand Blanc for our board meeting on Tuesday, February 9th. And I'd ask everyone to rise for the pledge at this time. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I would ask Clerk Robertson to perform a roll call, and if everyone can state what municipality you're currently in during this meeting, that'd be helpful.
Very good. Attendance roll call. Trustee Hugo.
Here, Grand Blanc Township.
Trustee Fike.
Here, Grand Blanc Township.
Trustee Raridan.
Here, Grand Blanc Township.
Trustee White.
Here in Grand Blanc Township.
Treasurer Kilmer is absent. Myself, I am in Grand Blanc Township in my offices. And Supervisor Bennett.
Yes, Grand Blanc Township.
Very good. 6 members present, a quorum.
Okay. At this time, I would like to ask for approval of both the consent agenda and the regular agenda. Motion by Trustee Raridan. Is that a motion? And supported by Trustee Fike.
Raridan and Fike. Support of the agenda and consent agenda.
Correct.
Okay. Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0. The agenda and the consent agenda is approved.
Okay, going to new business, item A, the board will consider.
Mr. Supervisor, do you want
Yes,
to?
I'm sorry.
Public comments?
Yes, you're right. So we will go at this time to public comment. And what I would ask is that anybody that wishes to make public comment, if you move your cursor to the bottom of the screen, you'll see the participants tab. If you click on that and then go to the bottom of the list of participants, there's an icon you can click on to raise your hand. And so hopefully if you're participating in the meeting this evening and you wish to make public comment, we would ask that you click on that icon to raise your hand. Any at this time, Ms. Roberts, that you see? Okay, we see no one wishing to make public comment, so we will bring it back to the board. And at this time, I will ask that we go to new business. The board will consider a resolution to allow local residents to protest to the Board of Review in writing. Sounds like quite a menacing thing, right? But it's actually some legal work that we need to do that the state requires. I don't know, Mr. Lemata or Mr. Laddie, for the public, would you like to elaborate just briefly on why we have to do this?
David, you want this one?
Either way.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah,
Or lay it. Go ahead, Dave.
We've always allowed people to protest in writing, but especially with COVID-19, it becomes more critical now that we're going to have mandatory Zoom meetings, basically electronic meetings for people to be able to protest. So the state tax commission has asked this resolution to be passed so that we can let people know that they have the right to protest to the Board of Review in writing, and that we will accept all of their challenges for their assessed and taxable value through the Board of Review in written format.
Okay. Anybody have any questions with regard to this topic? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve this motion, or this resolution.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay. Motion by Clerk Robertson, supported by Trustee Hugo.
Supported. Very good. Record roll call. Trustee Fike,
Yes.
Trustee White,
Yes.
Trustee Hugo,
Yes.
Trustee Raritan,
Yes.
myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett,
Yes.
6-0. Motion passes.
Item B, the board will consider a resolution to adopt the 2021 federal guidelines for poverty exemption. So this is also another requirement. Mr. Limita, do you care to comment? Maybe for the public to understand what this is about?
Every year, there are poverty exemptions that are allowed for people who fall below federal poverty guidelines, and they have the opportunity to then go to the Board of Review and request a reduction in the amount of taxes that they have to pay. This has gone on. This isn't something new. This is something that's gone on for quite some time. The federal guidelines are updated every single year. So we have passed the resolution in the past, obviously, and it should be done every year to adopt the guidelines. There were some changes this year for 2021, again, that the state allowed, and perhaps, David, if you wanted to discuss those, in any more detail than I'm providing.
You're exactly right. And in fact, this resolution may look familiar to a lot of you. We might have seen it in November or December. But what I've done is I've taken the mandated changes identified by the assessing department, and they appear in this resolution in italics. And so you can see that really, as far as previous resolutions that we've adopted, they're nearly the same. The dollar amounts, in fact, have changed slightly. But again, in section 8 and 9, paragraphs 8 and 9, you'll see just slight changes that reflect mandates from the tax tribunal. And so, again, this is, as Mr. Limita points out, this is fairly standard operating procedure for us, and it's ready for your consideration.
Okay, any discussion, questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. If someone cares to make it regarding this resolution. Mr. White, Trustee White makes the motion, supported by Trustee Fike.
Okay, trustee with support. All right, record roll call. Trustee White,
Yes.
Trustee Raritan,
Yes.
Trustee Fike,
Yes.
Trustee Hugo,
Yes.
myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes. Item C.
Very good. 6-0.
No, thank-
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item C, the board will consider a motion to approve the purchase of a 2021 Ford Explorer XLT 4x4 SUV from Gorno Ford of Woodhaven, Michigan for $33,230 with the installation of emergency equipment for $6,189 from Procom of Flint, Michigan, and declare the fire department's 2011 Chevy Tahoe as surplus equipment, and authorize the township superintendent to execute all related contracts and documents. Any discussion on this item or questions? This is through a bid process that we're getting this. Someone care to make the motion? A motion by Ms. Hugo,
Supported by.
supported by Clerk Robertson.
Very good. Record roll call. Trustee Hugo,
Yes.
Trustee Fike,
Yes.
Trustee Raritan,
Yes.
Trustee White,
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer. Oh, excuse me, he's absent. Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes,
Okay. 6-0. Motion passes.
thank you. Next, item D, the board will consider a motion to contract with Sentinel Technologies for managed services of our network, antivirus, desktop patching, and help desk tickets in the initial amount of $6,450, and then an ongoing monthly fee of $2,811.25, and for the township superintendent to sign and execute all contracts and documents. Mr. Limita?
Just to bring the board up to speed where Sentinel came from, the township conducted an IT assessment. It was actually took place during my absence. However, we had put the RFQs together and sent these out, RFPs together, like over a year ago, and had gotten some initial feedback. And then the township put a team together that reviewed all of the respondents and then went back out and adjusted those in my absence. The IT assessment came back, and it was a very thorough assessment where once Sentinel was selected by the township board, they went through and looked at our personnel, their skill sets, our security measures, our infrastructure, the age of our infrastructure, our setup. I mean, it was a very thorough assessment. And in the responses back, they brought us a number of changes and put a kind of priority schedule for us. So since I've returned in mid-December, we have been working along with the team, and hats off to the executive coordinator, Melissa Roberts. She's done a great deal of the legwork with this, as well as worked with Robbie Beller in really making sure that we were prioritizing appropriately and looking at how we move forward. One of those things that came up is that we do need to make some changes, and some of those are in the operation of systems of our network. We just don't have the skill or expertise that's required for an organization of our size. So the recommendation is that we contract some of this information. We were doing everything in-house. We had one of our employees who was a union position who resigned in January, took another position. So we were down to only Mr. Beller. This just came at an opportune time where we have the ability now to contract out. The amount of dollars that we're talking about contracting here comes out to about $33,000 for the year, much less than having an employee. And they can remote 24/7, 365, and keep our network up and running, including our antivirus and help desk. The help desk is so people were very used to going over and doing a shoulder tap. Robbie or Charles, can you come and help me with an issue that I'm having? They'll be using an outside help desk where they can also monitor 24/7, 365. We have someone who is there that is trained and ready to help us. So the request here really is to allow us to authorize that to use outside services to help manage our network and just really, again, update our antivirus, the desktop patching, and I can answer any questions that you may have. I know it was rather a lengthy document that came along with it.
I've got a question.
Mr. Fike?
Has Sentinel, Dennis, given you assurances that if Blanc Township, our computer system, it goes under some kind of an attack like the Genesee County system did and would shut them down, that they would have the wherewithal to fight that and that this wouldn't harm us?
That's a great question, Trustee Fike. And yes, in fact, one of the things that we got from the assessment is that we had it looked at a few years ago to make sure to lessen our vulnerability to these attacks. But one of the things that they've noted is even that we should have had an upgrade for who we are as a municipality in our antivirus software, and that is included in this. And then the fact that we've got 70 dedicated engineers through the Sentinel system who are monitoring our system 24/7, 365, which is obviously, while Robbie was incredible and monitored our systems, he wasn't there 24/7, 365. So this definitely upgrades our security. I don't think they gave us a guarantee, obviously, because the more patches or antiviral twist you come up with, the hackers come up with another one. But this certainly moves us much farther along from a safety perspective than we are currently.
And one more thing, you mentioned that we'll have a help desk. So in the past, we'd call Robbie, hey, I can't log in. Can you help me out? And he'd do it. So you're going to give us a phone number of somebody that says, all right, this guy or gal can help us in a moment's notice if we're having a little problem with our computer?
Yeah, actually, we'll have the help desk, which is different for us. And we've always had help desk tickets here. If people used them, you sent it in and it would just go with an email to the IT department. Much of that remains the same. We still have Robbie here, mind you, so he is still available. And in the next board agenda item, you'll see that I'm requesting a contract employee through Sentinel as well that's going to help us with some of the project management. We have a lot of upgrades to do. Our switches are outdated. They have to be upgraded before we could even get on to the next thing about improving our system. So we'll still have physical people here to assist us with those type of things, but we're also going to try to train the staff away and use some of those help desk tickets, because one of the things we found out in our IT assessment is how much time our staff was pulled away in those help desks, yet we have help desks available, including we're going to do more reliance on, like, BSNA is the major software that runs most of the things here in the township. They have their own help desk, but rather than utilize a help desk that they have, we've always relied on in-house. And we do want to make sure that our staff time is focused on taking care of the big projects and keeping our system up and running. And some of the smaller help desk items are going to be way better managed by having a phone number or an email that you can send to.
I got one more quick thing.
Go ahead.
Have you determined, Dennis, roughly how much we'll save by making this change, say, per year?
So I can give you some rough numbers right now in the fact that we had about $280,000 allocated in 2021 in the budget for salary and benefits costs for IT personnel. And what we're looking at doing here is this is going to cost us about $33,000 for the year. And it probably really replaces one full-time equivalent employee. And then if you look at what we do with, as far as, like I said, the next agenda item, if we contract out to take a look at this employee who has been vetted and trained on doing some of the project upgrades that we're going to have to do, we still save, even looking at that, roughly half of what we had budgeted in our expenses.
So no rough estimate?
100, and I mean, we're taking something that was costing us close to $90,000 down to $33,000, so saving us almost $60,000 there. And then again, depending on where we go with the contracted employee, a potential for an additional $100,000. So I mean, we could save as much as $160,000.
One of the things that the technology audit did was reveal some huge holes that we need to fix. And I guess the technology has become probably even more important than the brick and mortar building in many respects, because we have so many people working either remote or in the field. Our assessors are able to work on the road. So they're able to use tablets, our building inspectors, our DPW, I mean, everybody, our fire. And so the technology is critical. So in terms of saving money, it's probably an area where we're going to see some new money being devoted towards, and probably less towards physical space, just because, we all know that, we're all probably working from home a bit, and can see that, the technology is playing into how all of us are doing things. But the security, when we're talking about, voter records, we're talking about all of our building files, what have you, all of that stuff is so critical that we preserve it. I mean, somebody mentioned, it might have been you, Joel, that with regard to the county, there's been other local municipalities in the county that have been held, for ransom too, as far as their computer and software and records, and we don't want to have that happen. So we may see us in the future coming back for more expenditures. I fully believe that we will see some. these individuals are being brought on to help us to implement some new things. So this isn't going to be the last of our technology spending. This is just kind of getting our foot in the door with people that can help us make it happen. But I believe it's going to be money well spent. And I think, in the past, we tried to do this, but this is kind of an overall plan now instead of just kind of piecing it together. And I think everybody will be much more satisfied with our technology. So,
Mr. Supervisor?
yes, Clerk Robertson.
Yeah, a question for Dennis, just to be clear on the expectations, and I understand that these are rough estimates, but it's your belief that we could save between $100,000 and $160,000 with these changes, assuming even with the hiring of the services in item E in the agenda. So would you be surprised if it was less than 100,000?
I won't be, because, one of the things when it comes to this technology, I guess the way I look at it, Clerk Robertson, is I don't know what I don't know. And that's kind of the issue that Grand Blanc Township has had as we work through this. Mr. Beller has been an outstanding employee. He was a GIS technician, and when it came time, we had an opening and we needed somebody to come in and move in and take care of our information technology systems. We just said at that time, and it was before my time, but we said, hey, this guy knows GIS. That's just like IT. Let's have him be in charge of IT and GIS. And Mr. Beller went and got his bachelor's degree and worked on got his master's degree in information systems. I mean, he went out and tried to gain the knowledge, but that was not where his background was in the information technology sector. So as much as he has stepped up and done just what he could for the township, quite frankly, it was not where his background was, and it was not where his expertise was. He did it in response to a request by the township. So throughout this time, and then you look at the reliance on technology has gone up with what happens with our DPW systems and our automatic reads for water meters. Our building department has iPads. Our police officers have iPads and laptops. Our assessing department operates off of iPads out in the field. All of those come along with new softwares and new hardware requirements. So just in the last 5 years, we've added so much technology, and I can only imagine where we're going in the future. We had to make this investment, and that's why we did the assessment. Now, once we have professionals here, we had these guys come in and do the assessment. And again, unfortunately, I wasn't here during that time, and I wish I had been. But I think as we bring in this contract person and he starts to do some of the projects and some of the upgrades for us, we may find that we need more, another investment. Right now, I'm operating on reading what I read in the assessment that they did and looking at the $280,000 we had projected. And yet we might be working out of that system with only one employee instead of two. And we had projected 2.5 full-time equivalents. So there will be some type of cost savings in there, even with the managed services. But that doesn't mean that 6 months from now, after we have somebody come in here, I'm not back in front of the board saying, technology has shifted or we have to make another investment. But at least for the short term, it looks really promising we saved some money, and we're going to need it to invest in. We're still going to be investing in some of the capital expenditures. Our switches, I think those are supposed to be like 6 years, and we've got some that are 12 years old. I mean, we have a lot of work to do to get our system up to date, and I'll sleep a lot easier at night. I know what happened at the county, and quite frankly, those are the kind of things that keep me up at night. How do we protect ourselves? How do we make sure? And one of those things is storing, not on premise in servers, but being able to do cloud-based. Our infrastructure is outdated to the point that I can't even store cloud-based at this point. So we are going to have to do an investment over the next few years as we upgrade our systems.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Thank you, Dennis.
Yep.
Any other questions on this item? Someone prepared to make a motion with regard to this? Mr. Fike? Okay, Trustee Fike makes the motion. Is there support? Support by Trustee Hugo.
Okay. Record roll call. Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay. Thank you. Item C, the board will, excuse me, the board will consider a motion to authorize the superintendent to execute an agreement with Sentinel Technologies, Inc. to provide staffing for a systems administrator at $61 per hour for 6 months. The township may offer full-time employment at any time during the contracted period to the contract employee at its sole discretion. Mr. Limita?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This comes before the board, again, as we just discussed on the prior agenda item. We have the opportunity with Sentinel to take a look at using a contracted employee. When I said earlier, we don't know what we don't know, it's hard to interview and find somebody who has that sense of technology expertise that we need to move us forward in the Management Information Systems Department. Well, one of the things that Sentinel did is they allowed us to, they actually went out and did the recruiting for this position. They do the interviews, and of course they had done our assessment. So they know our deficiencies and they know where we're at. They know what our skill sets are currently, and they know what we needed to have. So they interviewed from a technical aspect, and then myself and a couple of other, human resource generalists and an executive coordinator. Then we interviewed the candidates based more on the fit, our standard interview questions to see if they were going to be a good fit for Grand Blanc Township. What this opportunity allows us to do is this employee would remain an employee of Sentinel Technologies, not of Grand Blanc Township. It's like using a temp agency. For the $61 an hour is what we're paying. And that, we don't pay anything else outside of that. We're not responsible for any of the payroll taxes, anything. It's just we're contracting an employee for 6 months. At the end of 6 months or any time during that 6 months, if we felt like this was a good fit and we wish to have that employee become a member of the Grand Blanc Township team, then I would come to the board and ask for approval to create or fill that position, and then we would do a negotiation with that person and bring them on board and transition them in. So I think it gives us the chance to kind of dip our toe in the water, test it, see how well this guy can bring us into the future of all the projects that we have to manage. And if he works out great, we've just had a really good 6-month interview process. If he doesn't, no harm, no foul, we walk away and we can regroup. We can either go back and advertise and hire our own employee, or we could start again with a different contract employee. I think it gives us some pretty good flexibility as opposed to hiring a full-time person and maybe finding out down the road that it didn't work out for us.
Well, the other benefit too, I think, Dennis, that I think you touched on is, that earlier was that we don't know or what we don't know. And to try and hire somebody who does know what we don't know is difficult unless we have some expertise in assisting us. And so I think that's what's also being brought to the table here is the candidates that you and your staff members interviewed. Had the knowledge that these people were screened and do have the background that we need. So, okay, any other questions on this item or concerns? Is anyone prepared to make a motion with regard to this?
I'll
Okay.
make the motion, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay, Clerk Robertson makes the motion. Is there support? Support by Trustee Fike.
Very good. Record roll call. Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. It's been something we've been wanting to do for a couple of years now in terms of upgrading technology, so we're glad to commit that the board is willing to commit the resources to that. Item F, the board will receive an update on the reorganization of township operations from the superintendent. Mr. Limita?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. In the packet, you did have my written board report with some comments on the reorganization, and then a copy of a functional org chart that just kind of shows, rather than list the individual positions or people behind it, more about the departments and what goes on in those departments or what's proposed to go on in those departments. We did it this way as a way, especially with a new board of trustees, to really try to help you get a feel for the various departments that we have and then the responsibilities within those individual departments, much more than just trying to put a list of job titles, which may or may not mean anything to you. And again, as we progress through 2021, you'll be getting presentations from all of the department heads at meetings that are going to introduce you to their department and walk you through, so that by the time the budget period starts for fiscal year 2022, you'll have had the opportunity to get a much better feel for each department, what their staff looks like, what they're responsible for, and give you the opportunity for some great Q&A on trying to get a better understanding and a better feel for what goes on in all of these various departments. I guarantee each one of the department heads will try to convince you that their department is the most important. But it's this is a good team. This is a great team of folks. And so what were the big changes through this reorganization? You know, I said in some of the information I sent out, we're really proud to work for the organization that we work for, it with good reason. I mean, we absolutely lead Genesee County as the #1 municipality out of 28. We bring the taxable value that drives all those millages that helps fund all those operations throughout the county. And a lot of that could never happen without this incredible team. But there are some things that we can do to streamline and get better. Continuous improvement is key. And we're always looking to say, what can happen? What can change? Well, one of the reasons that this really took, the forefront was because we had independent contracts that were set to expire. The ones that were expiring in 2020 all got extended through the end of January of 2021. And if we were going to impact any of those positions, we needed to give them as much notice as possible. And we were able to do that. One of the biggest changes had to do with 3 years ago, we hired a planner and joined the building and planning departments together and had him come in as the planning and building director. It was an experiment to see if we couldn't streamline operations, because we had some feedback from investors and developers about some challenges through our permitting and inspections process. And we thought combining those departments made sense. Well, 3 years later, I feel like we didn't accomplish the goals that we set out to do. The planner that we hired was absolutely incredible in his planning knowledge. He did a tremendous amount to streamline our planning department, and some of the things we did there worked great with the planning commission to work through some of those challenges, but yet combining those departments didn't really work. So I had to break that back up and look what I can do with the building department. So my proposal is that we're going to form, instead of just the Department of Public Works, it's the Department of Public Services. Inside of Public Services, we include the building department now and code enforcement. The reason we do that is because a lot of our permitting and inspections, well, you have permits and inspections for water and sewer projects. You have permit and inspections for the building department for anything from plumbing to other mechanical, to furnaces, to roofing, footings, everything. If you're an outside and you want to know about permits or inspections and you want to contact the township, what happens? I'm sorry, you got the wrong department. You need a water main inspection, you need to call back and call over to the DPW, or you need to call the building department. We're trying to get it so those things are seamless from an outside customer's standpoint. We have a great staff. We just needed to streamline some of our operations and move some of this around. GIS was formerly under IT. We moved that into the Department of Public Works last year because they use about 95% of GIS services. We're expanding that role within the Department of Public Services. Jeff is going to be our, Department of Public Service Director still. But when you look at all the things that fall under that category, adding something in there and creating some of the synergy between, like, especially permits and inspections, but other things. He also, with Parks and Recreation, we have parks operations, and that was new to us. We picked that up in February of 2020. We picked up fire in July of 2019. So we've added a heck of a lot of new departments in here. It put on more responsibility on everything from finance to human resources. When you think of fire, okay, we've got 40 some firefighters, and then Parks and Recreation hires over 100 people every year to run the programs. From a human resources standpoint, we've overloaded them. We've added, an additional, 140 some employees that you have to process payroll for and go through the benefits administration and all of the notices and all of that. So this was an effort to really take a look at what can we do to streamline without having to add a lot of personnel. We're very conscious of the revenue constraints that we're working under. We still need planning. We've always had a contract with Giffords Webster as a contract planner. We still were under contract with them at an hourly rate through December of 2021. So as our planning and building director, business was split in half. He took a severance package and stepped down. We brought in Giffords Webster. We're currently still dealing with all of our planning, submittals. We haven't missed a beat. But we will be looking for a staff planner or planning and zoning administrator. We'll be advertising that position. It's obviously a lower level than a director of planning and building. But we're going to continue to streamline operations and look for cost savings. Out of all the contracts that we had that were impacted, the director of assessing no longer had the ability to meet the qualifications. We needed a level 4 or an MMAO. She is going to take retirement. She had a contract extension. She'll take retirement on April 14th. That position is still very incredibly important and will still have that. But we're taking a good look at the number that we had in assessing. We had, 5 people manning assessing. We're really taking a hard look to see if that can happen with 4. So there may be a cost savings identified there. Our cashiers up front have been assigned to the treasurer, but they haven't really had a department head outside of elected officials. And we're taking a look at revamping the finance department. So the cashiers who are doing all the cash handling and cash balancing are going to be assigned to the finance department. And then we're looking at centralized purchasing. We have purchasing policies and procedures in place, but I would like to have a little tighter control on that because I think that's an area that we could have some exposure at. I want to make sure that all of the vendors that we do business with, we have the appropriate paperwork, we have W-9s, we have workers' comp for any independent contractors. We have all of those in one centralized place, and that when we do credit accounts or we agree to do business with certain businesses, I want that all to be centralized in one place. And I'd like to pull that into the finance department over the next 12 months or so. Human resources, like I mentioned, we're going to have to probably add at least a part-time person in there just to keep up with the demand. And then management information systems, we've already talked about at length. We had to make some progress there. And again, we had 2 employees. We were projected to add a third this year. Depending on how we move forward and we see how this comes out, there's a good possibility that we have 1 employee in management information systems and we use that contracted managed services, and it saves us the money because now we're not investing those in benefits and other employment costs. So I really wanted the board to see this, that we never stop looking at this. We continue to tweak it every year. But in the last, less than 2 years, we added fire department and parks and recreation department. It put a considerable strain. And yet I can tell you this, if you look at our overall head count, compare it back to 2007, the last time I looked, we were down about 12 people from what we had employed back in 2007. We're at 95% of the taxable value we had, so our revenue hasn't kept up. Our costs have continued to rise. We're down about 12 positions. We've done a lot. We've done more with less, but it's getting harder and harder to do that. And so we're trying to work smarter and put people in the right places. And if you ask the folks who call on us, come to see us every day, the residents, the business owners, the investors, I think that we're getting it right the vast majority of the time. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys saw through this reorganization or from the org chart.
Trustee Fike?
Where is Mr. Bennett's job in there?
This is only showing like from me down. The full org chart shows the full board above, like the residents, down to the township board. It separates out the clerk and treasurer and their responsibilities, as well as Mr. Bennett, who then directly comes down over me.
I got it. And the other thing was, I asked earlier about this, but I just want to get a clarification. Let's say there's a business or a developer that comes to Grand Blanc Township and wants to open a new business. Where do they go? What's the point person for that to at least start?
So generally they're gonna go directly to the planning department, depending on the size of the operation. If it's a sizable organization that's coming in, generally I'm the first point of contact. If they're working with MEDC or the Flint Genesee Chamber or one of those organizations, then I'm definitely the first point of contact. But if you're coming in and you wanted to start a new salon or a retail store, you're going to reach out to the planning department, and that's where the whole thing starts. You get a copy of the development guide, and it walks you through the steps you need to take from initial point of contact to opening your business.
And do you have the bandwidth to do that job and your job?
I can tell you this, Trustee Fike. 5 years ago, I was also a planner and human resources. So in that 5 years, we've moved putting a planner into place. We created a human resources department. So my answer is yes. And part of what we're doing even with this reorganization is looking for ways that, adding in fire and parks and recreation, did it create more hours? And absolutely. And I don't have a problem with that. But I told everybody, 15-hour days for me can't be the norm forever. It becomes untenable. But at this point, as we work through this, you're going to see we are going to take some more off. The executive coordinator's position is going to be required to take some more of the project type things that kept getting pushed back that we weren't working on. So I think, as a team, everybody's been coming together. We have a really good team and a good plan in place for how to move this forward.
Mr. Lehman, if I can just kind of elaborate too on just a response to Mr. Fike's question. It's a good question. As Mr. Lehman has said, we are going to replace the staff planner. Right now, we have Giffords Webster, which we have existing contract with and have had in the past. In the past, they did all the planning. So, you know, 3 years ago, we brought in somebody who was going to manage both the building department and the planning. At this point, what we're doing is we're using the contracted service. So Dennis isn't picking up that work. That's being done by an individual with Giffords Webster. And then the plan is to look for somebody to be just a planner and not the building department director. So that won't be put on Dennis's desk even now in the interim. We'll have a contracted planning agency that we've been using all along. They'll just be stepping up with more hours. Okay.
And really, it means a couple of Zoom meetings between me and Jill Boehm from Giffords Webster Planning, staying in touch on what the projects are. And it basically the same as me working with the planning and building director as it is working with the contracted planner as well.
Trustee White, go ahead. You had your hand up?
I just have a question, and there may be an easy answer to this, but do we have a person or an employee who writes grants and that's what their job is? I mean, how do departments apply for like federal grants, like through the Department of Transportation or other various places? Is this sort of being done on a piecemeal basis, or do we have like one central person who knows what basically how to do it?
Good question.
That's really a great question. In the police department, we have one person who's really dedicated towards the major grants, the federal grants, and she handles all of that. In the fire department, we've used both grant writers in the past when they were with the fire commission. Now that it's totally a township department, we're actually sending 2 people in the township to one of the grant writing seminars to make them dedicated grant writers. The executive coordinator's position under me was just an administrative assistant to both the supervisor and superintendent. We're expanding that position to executive coordinator. And again, she's going to focus on grant writing, and then bringing in Parks and Recreation. We have them dedicated for pursuing those types of grants for Parks and Recreation. So we don't have one person writing it, but we have someone dedicated in each department.
And those have to be brought through Dennis. So anybody who's working on a grant, Dennis is aware of it, and we're not being committed to something without our full knowledge either. Because sometimes a grant can commit you to some things that, you know, is it worth the money if you have to hire, you know, 3 full-time people and what have you. So so we keep an eye on that as well. But very good question, Trustee White. Okay, any other questions or concerns with regard to Dennis's organizational chart? It's a work in progress. I don't think it'll ever be in stone, but we appreciate your efforts, Mr. Limita, to streamline the operations and to save funds for the taxpayers. So with that, I don't know that a motion is necessary on that. Just you wanted to update us, and I don't see anybody with any questions. With the next item, future agenda items, I know that we had put out there the March 6th date for a board workshop. I'm not sure if that works for everybody. Hopefully it does, because I think the next date we're looking much further into the calendar. But Lou Bender, we put the information for his website and what have you in the packet. So if you have any questions with regard to his background, but I think everybody will find him very helpful with helping our board to move forward on maybe getting to the point where we can do strategic planning, that sort of thing. And we can start making sure we're doing all the great things that everybody ran for the board wants to see accomplished. So I know everybody here wants to do more than just pay bills, and we want to see some things happen, and I'm excited to see us be able to do that. But I'm still hoping that we're going to be able to meet in person before our term's done. But I know that it's been extended a little bit further, so we'll keep meeting online. But with that, we have time for some board reports. We're going to go into an executive session, but we can just run through these briefly and see if anybody has anything. Trustee Hugo, anything with regard to Planning Commission that you wanted to report on?
No, we did not have a meeting last
Okay.
week.
All right, anything on Zoning Board of Appeals, Trustee White?
Nope.
Okay. Anything Metro Alliance, Trustee Fight?
Not yet.
No? Okay. In the police committee, I think we're scheduling a meeting, so we'll have something coming up, I guess. Clerk Robertson, anything to report on?
We've begun the preliminary stages of preparing for the an election that's taking place in May. There was a meeting, Zoom meeting of all of the local governments and school districts with regard to the contracts that are necessary to be approved for us to administer any elections that might be taking place in those municipalities. There are none in our school districts. In the case of Grand Blanc Township, this was done countywide. It was organized by the county clerk, and it is a routine matter, but it did happen earlier this week. That's as much as I have.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned election. There will be a vote with regard to 911 funding in May. I believe also there will be an initiative by Community Mental Health, and there may be a third proposal on that ballot as well in May. So we were hoping that we could get something on the ballot for 911 soon, because otherwise the township would be responsible for our portion of the 911 bill, which I think was about $650,000 a year that we would have to come up with, so as a township, if we wanted to continue with being part of the 911 consortium. So that'll be on the ballot coming up. So we have a variety of things that I've been meeting with Dennis, with Mr. Lemadon, whether it's the roads, whether you name it. So we'll move on to Mr. Laddie, if you have anything you want to comment on.
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Lehman, anything else before we go into executive session?
Nothing to add. You guys have my written report, and that's it.
Okay. So I'd like to someone like to make the motion to go into executive session to consider an attorney's written opinion. Mr. Fight? You make that motion?
Yes.
Okay. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Ms. Hugo. Mr.
Record
Robertson?
roll call to go into closed session. Trustee White,
Yes.
Trustee Raridan,
Yes.
Trustee Fike,
Yes.
Trustee Hugo,
Yes.
myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes. And Mr. Robertson, note the time is 7:53.
7:53. Enter closed session at 7:53.
Okay,
Very good.
So for our residents that are on this meeting as participants, what we're going to do at this time is we're going to have the board go into a separate meeting, and we are going to meet for a while, and I'm not sure how long that'll be. If you care to wait for us, you can, but otherwise, it's hard to tell how long we will be, okay? With that, bear with me, board members, while I attempt to do this. I guess it mutes me when I get back into open session. So we are back into our open session of our board meeting. It is 9:15 p.m. And at this time, I believe I'll entertain a motion by Trustee White.
Yes. I would move to accept the recommended employee compensation agreements and authorize the superintendent, clerk, or supervisor to execute all agreements.
Is there support for the motion? Support by Ms. Hugo. Any discussion?
Motion, okay. Motion by White, supported by Hugo.
Yes.
A record roll call is in order, Mr. Supervisor.
Yep, I see no discussion, so go ahead.
Okay, Trustee Hugo,
Yes.
Trustee Fike,
Yes.
Trustee Raridan,
Yes.
Trustee White,
Yes.
myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
Okay. All right,
Okay.
very good.
So we'll entertain a motion to end the meeting.
To adjourn, I'll make that motion, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay, motion by Clerk Robertson, supported by Trustee Fike. All in favor,
Okay.
say aye.
Well, I got to take a record roll call. Sorry, this is the COVID rules. All right. Trustee Fike,
Yes.
Trustee White,
Yes.
Trustee Hugo,
Yes.
Trustee Raritan,
Yes.
myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned at 9:16 p.m.
All right.
Enjoy
Thank you,
your
everyone.
evening.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you. You too.